Reports from CADA Harmonized Assessments indicate that no less than 31.5 million Nigerians are at risk of food insecurity between June and August of 2024, with 83,846 of these individuals being internally displaced people. The northeastern states are anticipated to bear the brunt of the impact, particularly affecting 2.1 million individuals in Borno, 1.5 million in Yobe State, and 1.1 million in Adamawa State. This is attributed to the region being in the third phase of food and nutrition insecurity, indicating a heightened vulnerability during this period. The CADA Harmonize is a tool and methodology used in West Africa to assess food and nutrition security. It is a framework developed by the Permanent Interstate Committee for Drought Control in the Sahel and partners, including the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, the World Food Programme, WFP, and other regional and international organizations. Okay, we have an agriculturist, TEDHEKE, on how Nigeria can address food shortage in the country. Thank you very much. A very practical farmer. The last time we spoke is almost more than 4 years ago when we talked about your animal husbandry. How many cattle heads do you have now?
We have about 6,000 cattle now.
In a space of 4 years?
Well, yes, 4 years, but we had some before you interviewed me then.
Okay.
When you did a documentary on the farm, so yes, over 7 years, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite commendable. And what kind of... okay, let's talk about how can we redress this issue of food shortage, soaring prices, and the rest in the midst of the insecurity that envelopes Nigeria?
Unfortunately, I always see that Nigeria does not have an insecurity problem. We don't. We never had. Nigeria lost focus about what really mattered. I'm from the Niger Delta and I'm now in Nasarawa State. If you focus on food productivity, you engage a population that is mostly agrarian. When you engage that population, you help eliminate the first challenge of man, and the first challenge of man is food. For so long, this country has focused on the wrong priorities. When I say what you spoke about, solving this security challenge, if you understand that Agbado statement, it was premised on security, food, and sustainability.
Well, you could interpret it as a farmer, right?
Yes. Now the thing is, if you want to solve the insecurity problem, you have to ask the Nigerian national question. The problem with the Nigerian state today is because you are lacking the ability of feeding the population. So what you do as a country is expose your population to the vices that become destructive in creating a society that is viable for your people. So when you are not able to solve your food problem, you create insecurity that is as a result of your inability as a state to provide solution. Now, unfortunately, sir, 70 million hectares of farmland, 200 million people, average age of 19. Think about this. 40 million of that number of hectares arable. So from Delta State, palm oil and rubber, when we were growing up in the 70s, I was born in 1976, 70s and 80s. What happened to our rubber? What happened to your palm oil? Palm oil is more expensive than crude oil. So you ignored what is viable and started focusing on what is not, which is politics. So many of us talk about politics and ignore the foundation of politics. Most people go into politics because they want access to resources. Those resources are viable only when your state is working. Unfortunately, most of our states are not working. So the challenge of food security is lying in the plain feeds of Kebbi and in the wet feeds of Ekiti. What have you done with those feeds? We talk about China being one of the greatest countries in the world today. The Chinese Revolution, it was a cultural and economic driven by Chairman Mao, was primarily all about localization. Nigeria has to actually think about localization, or else the foundation is flawed. And once foundation is flawed, no matter how much you fight inflation, you are not going to do anything, because the impact on inflation, the primary impact on inflation is food, is production, is logistics. And that is mostly rural. It is because you are not taking advantage of what you have. So until and unless we go back to basis, we are not solving that food problem.
So we're talking of Shagari's Green Revolution again, Obasanjo's Operation Feed the Nation, and this time around maybe Anchor Borrower Scheme and the rest. You know?
I would say,
do not forget that the average Nigerian farmer is a peasant farmer. The equipment, they are not there. The fertilizer, CBN is just going to release 100 billion and the rest and what have you. Assessing all this to better improved agricultural produces is a big problem.
What is wrong with peasant farming? Decades past, our great-grandparents sent our parents to school with agriculture. So what is wrong with peasant farming? And you talked about the revolution, the various acronyms that was attached to from Shagari to Obasanjo. I'm talking about the Agbado Revolution. The Agbado Revolution is a concept that drives our capacity to become locally productive.
Is it on now?
It has to be on. Unfortunately, the president has not done much with regards to what he said with regards to Agbado, but it has to be on. Because when you look at it in context, right? What is it that in this country today that we can proudly say this is what we have? That does not need the dollar for us to survive. What is it? I need dollar to cook egusi soup. I need that to make eba. Do I need it to plant yam? Do I need dollar to make sure that cassava is growing or corn is growing in our land? So what needs to happen is finances that focuses on our ability as a people to become productive. That financing is lacking because the CBN government is focused on inflation. How do you solve that? Food is a challenge to the Nigerian state. If you solve the challenge of food, you solve the challenge of the nation. If you are able to focus on industrial revolution that is driven by agrarian, that is an Agbado revolution, that is a Masara revolution, that is an Oka revolution, what you simply do is to take the lack of productivity sitting on all over Nigeria and make them productive engine. That was what China did. That was what Taiwan did. That was what India did. Not any revolution that is driven by the West that is imposed on you can never grow, can never make you grow as a country. So the focus has to be on how do we regenerate financing. Okay? No, what some of us are trying to do is to say, look, let us look at the concept of funding agriculture and ask the question, why is it that we have failed? You talk about the Anchor Borrowers program. What was it that the Anchor Borrowers program was a massive success, even with all of the failures? How did we survive during COVID? How do we survive as a country when COVID was ravaging so many people in the world? Nigeria survived because we had food. Because the government made effort. Egypt does about 4.5 trillion naira every year on agricultural productivity. The United States of America, one of the most capitalist economies in the world, does about $30 billion every year on agric. Thailand is 70 million people. They do 3.5 trillion to support rice that we import into Nigeria as a country. So how is it that somebody wakes up one day and tells you that Nigerian rice has stone? Eat that stone. The Chinese ate their stone. In the 1980s, made in China was rejected in Nigeria. So you know what I'm talking about? Today, the world is made in China. So a country has to be deliberate in developing financial alternatives that focuses on the interest of the people. Not on some IMF-driven policies that will never be favorable to the third world. It has never worked. Devaluation, deregulation, privatization. Please show me an economy in the world where all of these policies has worked. And I will clap for you and say, let us go ahead and work. So the revolution that we need to solve the food security problem lies in our ability to harness what we have within.
And that's the Agbado Revolution.
Agbado Revolution. Land, people, structural component, and a nation that believes in what I call the Agba token. Tokenize your assets. Hong Kong today is tokenizing their infrastructure to develop their people. Why are we not? The other day, the CBN governor said $26 billion passed through Binance. And most of it cannot be accounted for. Why don't you begin to ask the fact that why can we not put 26? Why can we not see how we can pull most of those funds into the agricultural sector in Nigeria and create reproductivity. Are you aware, sir, that if we get food right, we will reduce the security by more than 50%? Because the reason, look, I'm an ex-minister for the Niger Delta. I'm an honorable man. How was it that we recruited? When I spoke to Fumi, that was the conversation we had. We recruited because the people had nowhere to run to. So they came to us. So I could pay somebody 1,000 and tell him go and bust pipeline, and they will. That's exactly how Boko Haram recruits. That's exactly how IPOB recruits. So once you take away that ability, once you give the local community the capacity, the ability to be able to feed, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to give most of us the ability to believe again.
Right.
And that is what Renew Hope is all about.
Rethinking will give you the chance again to come and expatiate further on this Agbado revolution and regenerating the Nigerian agricultural sector. We're going to go on break now. Rethinking TEDHEKE is simply a farmer, a revolutionary farmer.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on news.
It's an honor to be here.